All right, and this is the next part of my lesson where I want to show you how to create some bottom part of a tornado. So let's make it, let's call it lights. Put my camera somewhere here. All right, so this is my curve. It's like a source, should be for me. And this one tornado, another one. Can make those green. And now add another geometry. Let's make it green like a dot network. And let's call this tornado. I don't know how call this a type of this part of tornado. I don't know, just the bottom part. Anyway, I think that it's not too important how it calls, what is its name. All right, so let's create a grid because we definitely need to work with some geometry and the vortex. For our main vortex, we create like a circle to create a proper geometry, and because tornado is like a rotation. So in this case, I will create, let's set some, I don't know, a big size like 100 by 100. And let's add mountains up. And let's create some, let's increase the height. Let's choose flat wire shaded, remove this guy. And I will keep the grid quality by default 10 by 10. So I will create just a little bit of differences, okay, here. And let's make an offset from a mountain. Let's maybe make a bigger scale. Let's do an offset. Oops, wrong type. Okay, and all the stuff I will leave. Now let's scatter some points on the surface. Let's make like 100,000 points to fill this plane with some particles. And I will copy my color noise, I guess, from tornado noise. Let's go to frame 0. And those guys I will copy, or even, I will copy even this. Okay, so this is my noise. And with the noise setup, I can play maybe lower frequency. Yeah, something like that, because I have a bigger square and should have a smaller frequency. And let's make a bigger animation. I mean fast animation by multiply by maybe 10. Yeah, it's looking good. Pretty fast. And amplitude 1.5. Let's set this by default. And with the blast node, again, I remove particles which have the brightness lower than 0.1. And with the vortex particles, let's call this, I don't know, bottom vortex. And let's go dive here. All right, guys. Now, what I should create here, I'm gonna leave, I think I will remove my pop paint, pop kill. I don't do pop kill because I will create this particle here near the ground, and I will remove all other particles. And inside of my vortex, what I want to do here is basically, well, let's begin with the noise. Let's go to analytic parallel noise and make a very, very small scale. So the large frequency with a small scale. And I don't need any kind of offset. So let's leave that by 0. And amplitude and roughness by default. So that's just 1. Okay. With ramps, we can play with it. So now let's play with forces. So for now, our particles moving along our curve. But what I want to do, I don't need to have a big up force multiplier. So let's make it, I know, 1. The orbit multiplier should be a bigger, so 100, and attraction multiplier, again, maybe just set it to 1. I don't need to push my particles to the curve. I need to push them a little bit outward. So let's just, yeah, it's looking good. It's looking good. And another thing I don't like is that my curve is, let's go back to geometry, to the object level. You can see we have an angle, and it will create a twist a little bit with angle. I don't want to do that. I want to create the straight line and create a twist around this. So even if my main tornado body will have a curve, my bottom area should have like a horizontal movement. And to do that, we can just draw another curve. Okay, so if we go to dot network and dive in here to another curve, but I can simply go here, and except of this up force, I can go inside a parameter. Come on, just go to fast frame. Let's just call this Y direction. Y direction. And that's going to be a vector parameter. And let's say like 10 up. And reconnect just two outputs from our up force to the direction. Okay, so now if you look on our particles, they will create just nice twist around a straight line. Maybe even less of the force multiplier, I know, like 65. Just to avoid very huge speed. Let's make a random bigger, so the minimum random 1, maximum 1.5, to add a little bit more madness in those areas. Let's go to pop source and maybe increase the particles amount a bit. And let's change the life expectancy to 1 second and 0.5 to the life variance. So they will not exist forever. They will live just 1 second plus. So maximum they will live like, how much I have, 24. So 36 frames is maximum. And then they will die. Some of those will die even faster after the 12th frame. And it's looking good. Yeah. This is exactly what I want to have. Another thing that you need to keep in mind, that if you move your main curve, you should move your point. So in this case, you just can draw another curve here. This is like main curve for the main body. And another curve will be just straight with the same movement. Okay, because when you set a parameter here, this means that our lower point of a vector is on 0 point. Okay, but if you move your main tornado curve, you should move this point too. So to get the proper stuff, you can just create another straight curve, or a straight line in this case, and use this line for creating the bottom vortex. All right, so what else? Definitely we can add some additional noise for this. Let me just save Tornado version 3, I guess. Let's save as version 3. When I try to create something new, I always save as a new version. All right, so when we create the bottom tornado, you can see that we have a very smooth lines here. I want to add a little bit of noise, but in this case, not to velocity, but to position. So go to attribute warp, and let's call it position noise. So set a simple turbulent noise, add, and we're gonna drag the position, make some noise, a 3D noise, and back this information to our position. So actually we change position of our particles a little bit. Let's send turbulent noise parameters here. So maybe parallel noise. So let's see a difference, just tiny bit. So increase in amplitude, maybe like 5. Now this is more noisy. And yeah, its frequency is very, very big. So copy parameter, base relative reference. And let's set it like 0.1. Now you can see that it's pretty noisy. It's looking much better. Because even with the mountains up, we can't have too many noise. And with this thing we have it. So now let's go to divide by, I know my frame range, 24. No, maybe even more, like 40. Yeah. Something like that. Maybe increase the roughness to add more detail, more small detail. Now you can see it's a very noisy surface. What we had, what we have now. Yes. All right, so let me copy another part of this. It should be our, come on. Come on. The attribute, group delete, time shift, particles out. Yeah. Those guys. Connect the attribute delete. So you definitely need to keep just those attributes if you want to. Do we have any group? Yeah, we should have some group after the top network. Okay, so now I will cache this out. Let's call this bottom particles. And let's save, well, 500 frames. Don't need to 500 frames because yeah, it's too much. They will rise up pretty fast, and somewhere here in the frame 50 I already have a nice seam. So I will back in time, not at 250 frames or 40 frames, but just with 100 frames. So I will have 150 frames simulation and should be enough. Okay. So let's go to time shift. The trails up I can remove. The particle out. Okay, it's looking good. Yeah, just look at the old cache. So I don't know why is, oh, okay. That's my old simulation, so I will change my file cache for now. So here's my particles. Hey. Oh, here you go. Some updates problem. And this is my noise. Look from camera. Oops. Look from camera. There's my particles. And what I want to do in this case, it's a little bit bigger than I expect, maybe, so we can play with this later. What I want to do, I want to go and we have a velocities, and I want to add a volume rasterize attribute. Oops. Volume rasterize attributes, and create a field with just velocities. So we don't have particles. Okay, go to scene view and normalize. Yeah, now with a bigger voxel size like 0.8. It's not too representative, but anyway. And maybe a little bit bigger particle scale, like here, to cover a bigger volume around my particles, to avoid any, smoke flying from the velocity field. But we have just a velocity, but we need to create a density field. In less time, we create our tornado, we use our particles as the attribute, or actually a position for creating spheres, and transfer the density attribute to the source and getting smoke. In this case, what I want to do is take our particles out and create the VDB volume. It should be from particles. Come on, VDB from particles, connect it here. Just want to hold in escape because I have a big volume, big size, big scale. So I should increase the voxel size to reduce the quality. Yeah, so maybe like, come on, press escape, put light 0.4. Okay, decrease the minimum radius scale to 0. And that's what we have, just a bunch of spheres around each particle. But if we add VDB reshape SDF, we can erode a little bit from those particles and then convert this VDB to the VDB, but with VDB class SDF to fog. Right? But basically it's not the volume we can use, it's actually a surface in that case. But what we can do is add a convert node and convert this to the volume. And we can say that we will transfer this surface and then just rename. So basically we can keep a name surface and just in our pyro source said that we transfer our surface field into the density field. But to avoid any problems, let's add a name node and said that I want to rename my surface field to the density field. And then merge those guys to get one source with velocities and with the density. Okay, so add a null object. Come on, tab, null object. Let's name it out density. And it's pretty big. I think that I should transform this guy a little bit, because we need to spend a lot of space. So let's just make it smaller, a bit smaller. So now we go to information. We can see the voxel size is 0.04, 0.08 for our source. Let's go and add dop network. Let's call this bottom vertex. Dive inside and go to PyroSolver. In this case, I will use the old one, not a sparse. So the smoke object, go to first frame, and the volume source. Okay, so go in open input path. I will put this node from the fast input. Let's put some density to the density. And I guess I don't need to use, let's add some temperature just a tiny bit. So let's take a density and let's set the density to temperature, but with a smaller scale, like 0.1 maybe, and add a velocity. So the vector v to vel, and select maybe pole 111, leave it. Okay, so the smoke object should have now the dimension of my source. So let's where you are? Oh, here you go. So we can find this, and let's go and add a bounded box. And I want to type here the path for my out density, and type the x size. So that's the size of my source. Now I want to copy this for the y size, for the z size. So it's very simple. If you don't know the size of your source, you can simply use the bounded box comment or expression. Here we can set the path to our source, and the x size means that we're gonna grab the x size, the y size, and z size. So another one comment is centroid. So the same, we should add our source, our density, and then after this we need to type. We always have some, nice help window. So if we forget how we can type the proper comment, so centroid, the path for the objects, then comma, dx in our case. So this is just a position or the center of our object. Control C. I guess in our case it's all zeros, but anyway, well, maybe not. And it's not. A little bit upper, 0.6. Cool, so let me see, does it work? And it's working. So the next thing is gas resize fluid dynamic, because we need to resize my domain container. It's not a sparse mode anymore. Density source. That's why we need to get a gas resize fluid dynamic. I uncheck clamp to maximum because I really don't need to clamp it. I need to make it a little bit bigger. And because we will have some rising up, I will increase the lower padding scale for y-axis a little bit bigger, so to 5. I don't want to have some clamping in the upper areas. So it's shrinking and shrinking. Can go to smoke object and enable the solve creation frame. Therefore, our container won't be smaller than it has to be. All right, so our voxel size is pretty big. In our case, it's 0.2 by default. Let's set 0.1 for a test. And as always, let's copy this parameter and paste it. Oh no, you know what? No. I don't want to paste it here. Anyway, 0.1 in this case, it should be fine. Now dop import field, we will use this node to get our information from the dop network. So just drag it here. Bottom vertex 1, I guess that we already have. Oh, bottom vertex. Okay. Bottom seam, call this. And the smoke object, all smoke objects we can find in this dop network. Let's choose a smoke. Velocity, don't need the rest field, temperature, city. And now we're gonna have a result. So let's play this a bit. So if you want to look at the source, you can go here at the name and look at this nice source. It's very, very noisy. It's very noisy. But anyway, let's create a nice twist. So let's add the proper angle, select the proper angle, and let's enable a flipbook just to see how it's looking with an animation. It's pretty low res, but definitely should add some steps for this. And dissipation a little bit bigger. I don't like those. Well, in the fast frames we will have some mushrooms, but I hope they will disappear later. And let's add some, I guess I should have a disturbance because it's very flat and very, very smooth lines. So I need to break them in the turbulence. Not too much, but I should have it. Okay, let's stop it. I saw all what I need. So let's back here to the dop network. Now let's play a little bit with this. And yeah, another thing I want to add here is a ground plane, because I want to have a collision between this smoke and the ground. So add a merge, connect here, here. Uncheck this. So I just disable the view, so I can hide ground plane, but it's still there. So with Empire Solver, what I should have here, I guess I will leave all the settings for simulation by default, mainly because and you know what, I don't want to have a huge temperature. Maybe I'll set like 0.01, so it should be a pretty small, or I don't know, like 0.2, so it's still there but very small. And with the Pyro Solver, with the combustion mode, I don't need a combustion mode, I guess. Again, because I don't need to create a fire or something like that. So with the shape, dissipation bigger. We had dissipation 0.5 for our vortex in a sparse mode. So I set something like 0.2 here with the default settings for temperature and disturbance and the turbulence. So for the disturbance, let's set a huge amount. So let's say 5, so 10 times bigger than it by default. And I'm gonna leave the block size and the cutoff, I guess, the same. And the turbulence, what we have here, 0.1, let's set like 0.2 or even 0.25, just a tiny bit bigger. Swirl size is 1. For this size, 5 meters, 5 meters. Let's say 2, so 2 meter lengths. So like this size, 2 meters. All right, a little bit more green, just tiny bit, and the pulse length is very small. You can see that rotation is pretty fast. So I need to change my turbulence pretty fast too, because if we change this in property, our rotation will be big, but the noise will be with a small time scale, and it will look like the noise at the same place, but the smoke is moving. Okay, it's looking a little bit not too good, and definitely need to add some turbulence to get more details for that. And as a minimum is 2 sub-steps, just a minimum. So basically, maybe for the final simulation, we can use even more. So let's look from camera. And, you're so small. Okay, let's transform back. Let's back this guy here. So let's choose some of those, maybe the main vortex. Summon frame 60. I do need to calculate the bottom areas. Let's okay, let's make some simulation. I want to save this first, and then I will transform in a proper place because this will be a little bit easier. So file cache, let's add this, and without a heap name, let's call bottom, let's call it new, oops, typing somewhere, I don't know where, bottom, new. Now, let's render, why I'm saying render? Let's save this cache like 100 frames. And let's see what do we have. So, load from disk, save my project, and let's save to disk in the background. And we out here. So I apply transform like 5 times scale bigger to have a pretty the same position for my vertex here. So let's go and change, let's go to the top view. Set top view. I want to see, does it match? You can see it's nice vertex from the top. And I guess it's fine. Yeah, it's all on 0 position. So now we can render out my bottom area. Let's go and add a null object. Another one and call it the bout. Okay, bout. Cool. Now I think that I can use this node, but anyway, let's do the same stuff over here. I just want to copy my render node. Let's call this bottom, and let's rename this guy. It's loading the old vertex, so let's change the path, go to my tornado bottom and be out. It's gonna be bottom. And the vortex noise, let's choose a material. So let's go here. If you are bottom, we place you in the bottom area. So vortex bottom. Let's apply this material. Vertex bottom, accept. And go to out. I'm gonna paste this again in the bottom area. Let's call this tornado bottom. Let's choose the objects. So I still need force mate for level 1 because it's going around this vortex, so I should have the mate object. So let's say bottom. Okay, let's apply and let's render out with the same camera using just tornado bottom. Let's render. I guess I will turn on preview mode because I want to set up the color and the transparency, so the density scale for the bottom part. It should be somewhere in the middle between the low density part of the vortex and the high density core of my vortex. So we had like 1.5 for my first level, and I guess that maybe like 1 should be enough for the density scale here. So let's type 1 and let's see what do we have. The results take some time. It takes too many time because it's drag the level 1 vortex for making a cut. I don't know. Hello. I should have a preview mode. Come on. Yeah, because I don't have an auto update, so when I press a preview mode, it still works in standard mode because it doesn't update it. So make a, and that's what we have. So yeah, a little noisy, but what I definitely want to have is add more color because it's a little bit gray. So let's reduce my blue like 12 and reduce the green 26 and 12, so somewhere like 18. Maybe keep a red. I'll just reduce it just a tiny bit, 0.27, to avoid very contrast high saturated colors. Definitely should have something around the color of my main vortex. All right. And what I should really do is increasing the sampling, because let's go to, I guess it leaves those settings as they are. We have a shadow, so we have this nice contrast, but go to out, come on. Guess I need to increase the sampling here 4x4 to avoid a very noisy, you can see that in such areas we have a very noisy result. Well, I can't see it because it's still rendering in just 7%, but with enabled motion blur, you can just disable motion blur. I just want to see a little bit faster calculation. So, and let's go and disable preview. Definitely will render a little bit slow because of the big amount of transparent areas. So I should increase the pixel samples. Definitely. Let's go here somewhere. I will cut some bottom areas, I guess, with some masks on my backplate. Let me just shrink it back to get a better. Yeah, you can see that it's pretty noisy. A lot of this noise will go away with the pre-multiplication because we have a very, very low transparent area there, or actually high transparent area. Very low opacity. So as you can see, this image is showing us all details, all noisy stuff. But if you look on alpha channels, there is almost no alpha, just very, very small pieces, and we can see that it's like 0.1, 0.05 dense opacity, and even smaller. So we can't see, we won't see this noise, especially on the bright area. So yeah, another thing I can add here is, well, I still want to see It's a good areas there, so you can see that there's not too many noise in this area, but a lot of noise here. So let's get back to the objects and let's turn on my background image. So now we can see that we almost can't see this noise because it's very, very opaque. Yeah, this is our main core. So there's no almost any information. It will maybe add some noise here, but especially when we add a motion blur, it will remove this noise, I guess. Now I want to see is there enough density, because always on a black background it looking like good, but when you render all this and paste on a background on a backplate, which is mostly much brighter than a black color, you can see that okay, I can see this smoke because it's so transparent, it's so less density, and we need to re-render it again. So anytime when you try to place your FX on some backplate image, try to use this image just for test and then render out just with the black outside, with the black background. But you always need to understand that, okay, it's pretty good, I like it. So even with these default pixel samples 3x3, it's looking not bad, but definitely I want to increase it by 4x4 and add a motion blur. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good. So okay, let's render this guy. Let's go to out. Let's set 4x4. We can choose the physical embedded rendering and a low motion blur. And go to the bottom, sampling, velocity blur. Oh yeah, and here I should have a velocity blur. Just remind that I should do this. All right, with velocity blur enabled. Okay, so now we have all my main parts, but again, if you look at our background, go to the scene view, we can see that we have some plants over here. So definitely the last, I think it will be the last layer. It's some parts of the plants rotating around my vertex. So now we can play a little bit with the geometry and then go to compositing.